Who are the strongest characters to ever wield the Infinity Gauntlet? Dr. Doom, Black Panther, Spider-Man, Thanos? Join me as I discuss which heroes and villains have donned the iconic giant glove and what exactly they did with that much power. We should actually be a little thankful that Dr. Doom wasn't around during the first 3 phases of the MCU, because I wouldn't have been surprised if the evil dictator found a way to get to the Infinity Gauntlet for himself. I mean, the Gauntlet is one of the most elusive and sought after artifacts in the entire universe. Of course Doom would want that. In the MCU, I'm sure that he probably would have joined the fight against Thanos to stop Earth from being destroyed, but if he was put in a situation like Iron Man, where he could snap everyone back at the cost of his own life? Well, I don't think Doom would follow Tony Stark's example, do you? No. So now whenever we do get Doom in all his glory, we won't see him hunting after Infinity Stones, which is a shame because in the comics, Doom with the Infinity Gauntlet is a lot of fun. So there's one comic run where Doom seemingly gives up his life in order to save the Earth from Celestials, but of course it doesn't stick. Doom actually wakes up in the presence of the International Council of Reed, which is a group of Reed Richards from multiple realities, and yes, that sounds pretty similar to Rick and Morty, so it's hard to take seriously. Anyways, Doom finds 2 Infinity Gauntlets from alternate realities and puts them on, and then decides to build a Parliament of Doom with a collection of Dooms from across the multiverse. Man, I'd love it if we got an army of Reed Richards fighting an army of Dr. Dooms, wouldn't you? We still don't know what the Secret Wars movie is going to look like in the MCU, but unfortunately we know it cannot be exactly faithful to the comics. In that event, Doom takes over everything and rewrites reality in order to become a god and rules over a newly created Battleworld. Well, Doctor Strange secretly was able to hide an Infinity Gauntlet in Battleworld, which Black Panther and Namor eventually find. This leads to an epic fight where T'Challa dons the Infinity Gauntlet to go toe-to-toe with Emperor God Doom, and the results are insane. I wonder if Chadwick Boseman was still with us, if this was what Secret Wars could have been. But to be fair, maybe that is still possible. This is being written before the new Black Panther movie comes out, so I can't say with 100% certainty, but yeah, it looks like Shuri will be the new Black Panther. With her being important to Wakanda and presumably Latveria being another superpowered country, this could create a great rivalry between Shuri and Doctor Doom, leading to a huge confrontation in Secret Wars. And it's a shame the MCU really closed the book on the Infinity Gauntlet before seeing it used against Doom in Secret Wars wielded by Shuri's Black Panther, as that would have been amazing. And who knows, with the rewrite of reality, it is entirely possible the Gauntlet could come back. Would you like to see it return to the MCU? I mean, we had to discuss Thanos. The Infinity Gauntlet was like tailor-made for him, and his quest for the Gauntlet formed the backbone of both the comic storyline and the first 3 phases of the MCU. So yeah, he's incredibly strong with it. Just look at all he was able to accomplish. He had such strong willpower and determination that he was able to snap away half of the entire universe in the MCU. And sure, Hulk was able to snap everyone back, but they hand-waved that mostly with a vague explanation that the stones dealt with gamma radiation, so that's what allowed Hulk to be alright while doing so. Thanos is just a normal giant purple alien, and he was still able to snap half the universe from existence even with a ginormous axe wound in his chest. I can barely add 2 + 2 when I stub my pinky toe, so you're saying with a giant gaping axe wound, Thanos was able to use the Infinity Gauntlet effectively and get off a pretty solid one-liner in the process? The dude is super powerful, and although Infinity War is great and it turns Thanos into a fascinating character, Thanos' use of the Infinity Gauntlet in the comics is arguably better and really showcases just how powerful someone can be when they use the gauntlet to its full potential. Anyone who's read the Infinity Gauntlet comic storyline knows that there was one major character missing in the MCU, Adam Warlock. He was a vital part of that whole arc, so while we were prepping for Infinity War, I know a lot were wondering if they were going to fit Adam into the story somehow. But nope, Adam stayed out of this arc, which raises interesting questions regarding Adam's future. We know he's a major part of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but what will he be like without the Infinity Gauntlet as one of his defining character arcs? comics? Time will tell, but let's take time to talk about Adam in the comics and his experience with the gauntlet. So a lot happens in that arc, but at one point, Adam was able to transfer his essence into the soul gem, making himself more powerful and essentially stole the gauntlet away from its user in order to have it himself. He basically saved the day in the end, undoing all the damage Thanos had done, and he didn't end up all crispy like Iron Man. So now I definitely wish Adam was an Endgame. Anyways, he didn't have the gauntlet for too long. The living tribunals showed up and basically forced Adam to spread the gems out so they weren't all in one place, and one person had all the power. Though this leads to Adam giving the stones to Gamora, Drax, Moondragon, and Pip to form the Infinity Watch. Do you think the MCU's Drax should have an Infinity Stone? I have my doubts. I can't really talk about Adam Warlock without talking about Magus. Magus is Adam Warlock's evil half. Basically, what happened in the comics is this. When Warlock had the gauntlet, he expunged the good and evil parts of his soul. That evil part became Magus, who is incredibly dangerous for the entire universe. Then an odd sequence of events happens. The being known as Eternity depowers all the stones, so they're useless. Then Magus gets his hands on the gauntlet and the stones, confronts Eternity, and has him essentially turn the stones back on, giving Magus incredible power. But the key was that Thanos had secretly swapped out the Reality Stone with a fake, which meant Magus couldn't harness the gauntlet's true power and was promptly defeated. He's placed inside the Soul Stone itself, and if it's anything like the MCU, it's probably just a big empty lake area. Sounds like a nightmare. I have a feeling that in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, we're going to see a bit of Adam Warlock's evil side, especially since the villain is the evil geneticist High Evolutionary. But as awesome as that's going to be, I'm overall a little bummed we won't get Adam or Magus with the Infinity Gauntlet. So Spider-Man wielding the Infinity Gauntlet is a bit of a weird one, but I find it charming. So there's a comic series out there called Avengers and the Infinity Gauntlet, and it's part of Marvel's All Ages line of comics, which means it is retelling certain stories, but making them a bit more kid-friendly. I guess a small child doesn't need to see their favorite heroes decimated by Thanos too early in their development. I mean, we all read it when we were young, and we turned out fine, right? Don't answer that. Anyways, in this storyline, Thanos makes half the universe disappear rather than saying he killed them. And then a group of heroes go into space to fight the big mean alien. This group consists of Spider-Man, Wolverine, Miss Marvel, and the Hulk. One thing leads to another, and the gauntlet is separated from Thanos, and our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man snatches it up, puts it on, and wishes that Thanos never got a hold of the gauntlet in the first place. Immediately, the day is saved. Hooray! But that does make me think, what if Peter had worn the gauntlet in Endgame and saved the day? Do you think his super strong Spider-Man body would have stopped him from perishing? Do you think Peter would have found another way to deal with Thanos? Like, Tony had no problem snapping Thanos and his army into oblivion, but Peter has been shown to be so incredibly anti-kill that I would imagine that he would have just snapped his fingers to turn back time and save Titan or something, right? Reed Richards is a notoriously smart guy. It's kind of what he's more known for now, which is really impressive given that he can stretch his body into all sorts of weird shapes and sizes. But being this intelligent, you sort of realize when things are too dangerous to be around anymore. That's what leads Reed to wear the Infinity Gauntlet. You see, Reed thinks that the gems and the gauntlet should be destroyed so no one can harness the power for nefarious reasons. And given how often it happens, that's not the worst idea in the world. So Reed goes on a quest to get all the Infinity Gems in the comics, and it's not an easy one. He has to create a time flux and open up a tear in reality, among other things. And rejoice, he does finally get all of them together and tries to will the gems out of existence. But as smart as Reed is, he doesn't necessarily have as successful of a follow-through though. He's unable to complete the task of destroying the gems and almost is corrupted by the gauntlet. Only a save by the Watcher stops him from losing himself completely. Afterwards, the gems are divided and given to the members of the Illuminati. Hulk has wielded the Infinity Gauntlet, but with a big twist. The Ultimate Universe is wild. Okay, so over there are 8 Infinity Gems. People don't have 8 fingers over there, which means that yes, there are 2 Infinity Gauntlets. During one comic arc, both gauntlets were in possession of S.H.I.E.L.D. Thanks to a version of Kang that came knocking, the villain unleashed the ultimate version of Hulk from S.H.I.E.L.D. prison, which led to the Gray Monster stealing both Infinity Gauntlets and the stones. Thankfully, there were only 5 stones, so Ultimate Hulk didn't have the full set. He was still pretty dang powerful, but manageable enough where the Ultimate heroes could still win the day. Can you imagine if the MCU had 8 Infinity Stones? Would Infinity War look different? Would Endgame? I bet there's a universe out there with not only 2 Infinity Gauntlets, but also a pair of Infinity Boots as well. Can you imagine all that hardware? Do you think Endgame would have been as impactful if Captain America was the one who sacrificed himself to save the universe while Iron Man got to go home to his love and live out the rest of his days in happy retirement? That's a crazy what if. But while we're on that subject, let's talk about the time Captain America wielded the Infinity Gauntlet. This is a fun story. So at one point in the comics, an alternate Earth was getting ready to crash into our Earth, which, you know, is a total bummer. The Illuminati banded together, and with Captain America among their ranks at that point, set out to save the day. The group wanted to try to just simply push the incursion away, and the Infinity Gauntlet was the best option for such a task. Steve Rogers was selected to do it because of the strength of character, and we get this epic scene of Steve trying to save the day. He technically succeeds in the short term, but the gauntlet breaks so they can't do it again, meaning the next time an incursion like that happened, the only solution was to destroy the other Earth, something Cap was not a big fan of. Yes, we know Iron Man wielded the gauntlet in the MCU, but did he ever do it in the comics? The answer is yes. And although the circumstances are similar, it obviously doesn't have the same outcome. So the villain, known as the Hood, was on his own quest to gather all the Infinity Gems and use the gauntlet. You know, classic bad guy move. But thankfully, our heroes step up to stop him, and it's Iron Man who's able to wrestle the gems away from the Hood and dons the gauntlet himself. Tony makes a big show and pretends to will the gauntlet out of existence, but secretly, Tony just brought the gauntlet to the Illuminati so they could decide better hiding spots for the gems. That sounds like a total Tony move, right? This is 100% totally canon. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Deadpool has worn the Infinity Gauntlet. Yep, absolutely true. Sorta. Okay, not really. Anyways, in a fun side story that ties into the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Thanos sends Deadpool after the gauntlet. Deadpool switches it out, gives Thanos a replica, and then blows the Mad Titan up in his Thanos copter. Deadpool then goes on his own adventure where he basically roasts the entire Marvel Universe. And no, I don't mean he lights them all on fire. No, like he creates this whole roast situation where the Marvel Universe gets to make fun of him and then he'll make fun of them. Howard the Duck is the guest MC, and you can kind of guess who's good on the mic and who isn't. Wolverine and Thor don't have much of a sense of humor when it comes to roasting Deadpool, but Spidey handles himself pretty well. His first line is about how it's unfair that wise Uncle Ben is dead, but Deadpool is alive. Hulk makes a lot of fart jokes and then smashes the podium. See, MCU Thanos, this is what you could have done with the Infinity Gauntlet. Anyways, by the end, Deadpool realizes this is all pointless and tells the audience, meaning us, that he doesn't want to shatter the other hero's fictitious world, so he sets everything back to normal. In the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Nebula gets her turn with the gauntlet, but she deserves a win. In the MCU, it's explained that Nebula has been ripped apart and stitched back together with machinery, but in the comics, she's more of a walking corpse in constant pain. That's important to know because in the comics, after Thanos becomes the master of all reality and leaves his own body to become one with the universe, the walking corpse Nebula finds Thanos' body and steals the Infinity Gauntlet from him, taking with it all of Thanos' power. She technically did a good thing by undoing everything Thanos did, but it's not like she did it for heroic reasons. No, she only wanted to anger Thanos. So if Thanos did actual good with the gauntlet, Nebula would have just undone that without any hesitation. Hey, spite can be a powerful motivator, right? Loki's time with the Infinity Gauntlet is more of a tease than anything. He acquires all the gems, confronts the Celestials, and gets a glimpse of his future. He doesn't necessarily like what he sees, so he just returns them. And that's an interesting payoff to the shot of Loki with the Infinity Gauntlet in the comics that got fans excited, but it's nothing super significant. I'd be super curious what the MCU's Loki would do right now with the Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, Loki is the last line of defense against Kang's now evil TVA. Sure, Infinity Stones don't work there, but surely Loki could take a stone, go to a universe that Kang is in, and then use that stone effectively, right? The debate about whether Thanos or Darkseid is stronger has always been an interesting one, and although we'll never see that in live action because 1, the studios are different, and 2, DC is at least another 36 years out from introducing a new Darkseid by the looks of it, but comics are much different. There are huge Justice League Avengers crossover comics, and one of them saw the Lord of Apocalypse himself wield the Infinity Infinity Gauntlet. It's a terrifying prospect for our heroes to see Darkseid with the gauntlet and the stones, but they don't need to worry. The stones don't hold any power in the DC universe, making the glove nothing more than a stylish accessory. Doesn't match his color palette though. Gold on gray? Absolutely not. For anyone who loves super pets, I recommend reading Lockjaw and the Pet Avengers. Yes, you heard that right. Anyways, Lockjaw, the Inhuman's dog, stumbles upon the Mind Stone, increases his intelligence, then gathers a bunch of other pets like Throg together to go collect the rest of the stones. They actually succeed, but when Thanos comes knocking, Throg helps make a new Infinity Gauntlet out of Lockjaw's collar, and it gives Lockjaw the full power of the gems. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? No, seriously, tell him who's a good boy or else he'll obliterate all of us. In the end, they defeat Thanos and turn the stones over to Reed Richards. What characters do you want to see wield the Infinity Gauntlet? Thor? Hawkeye? Howard the Duck? There's a lot of choices. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know who you think is the strongest on this list. Thanks for watching CBR. See you next time.